So prior to the 2020 season, Mike Zimmer came out and faithfully said, "Don't worry, I've never had a bad defense since I've been here." And while that was true up until this point, we have seen this season a Vikings defense that has collapsed and lost a ton of players due to injury as they continue to lose the battle of attrition throughout the season, and now faced with a Week 8 matchup on the road in Lambeau Field against Green Bay. I believe that we are now looking at the beginning of the end for this defense going forward for the rest of the season. So let's talk about why that is. So we have up here on the board the predicted starting depth charts for the Green Bay game. And then underneath of that, we have a list of question marks and what ifs and what could have beens. So the injury report has come out within the last half hour for Thursday, and it is it's identical to the one that came out on Wednesday. Nothing has changed. So we're going into this weekend wondering whether or not we're even going to be able to put a secondary on the field. And when you're having those kind of discussions, when your next opponent is Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, the things are bad. So I would anticipate that the Vikings are likely going to end Week 8 with a 1-7 record, or with a 1-6 record, excuse me. And things are not looking good. So the potential starters for the Green Bay game, we have Harrison Smith, Anthony Harris. That's normal. Nothing really much has changed in the safety department. The corner situation is where things get ugly. You have Jeff Gladney, who's probably going to be assigned Devontae Adams. Good luck. And then we have Harrison Hand on the other side, who will get whatever other assignment comes his way. On the injury reports and absent from practice that has been notable has been Mike Hughes, Holton Hill, Chris Jones, who they just signed off the street, and Cam Dantzler. Now, we have some updates to all of these injuries. Cam Dantzler is now on the COVID-19 list, so he will not be available. Mike Hughes has re-aggravated a neck injury, so likely he will miss this game, and there is talk of the Vikings shutting him down for the rest of the year. And given that, I think that there's some, tough decisions that have to be made regarding Mike Hughes going forward. We'll get to that in a minute. And then Holton Hill has the foot injury. Chris Jones is absent from practice. I really don't know what the status is on him, so he's a question mark. And then Chris Boyd has both a hamstring and back issue. He is on the injury report for practice as well. So not looking good for the corner situation. Linebackers, Connolly, Kendricks, Wilson, that's not terrible. It could be worse. Troy Dye is coming off of the injury report, so he should be available. He's still on, he's coming off IR. He's still on the injury report, but he should be fine going forward. We did get Todd Davis off of the free agency list, off the waiver wire. So the linebacker situation could be worse, but it's, it is what it is at this point. The front four, the defensive line, this is where things are really going to be a problem. So Odenigbo, Shamar Stephen, Jaleel Johnson, Jalen Holmes said yesterday in an interview that he anticipates to be the starter over DJ Wanham. So DJ Wanham is going to be the backup for both sides of the defensive line. And we are now in a situation where I don't think we have a viable pass rush whatsoever. Yes, I anticipate, getting to the quarterback eventually. There's going to be some plays where it does happen, but it's not an intimidating pass rush by any means. And then straight up the middle, the interior defensive line, which has been a problem for 2 years now, ever since we lost Sheldon Richardson, is also very exposed, if you will, because Michael Pierce opted out at the beginning of the season. So that is, a look at your starting depth chart heading into the Green Bay game. So now we can sort of take a look at how we got here, right? So we lost Danielle Hunter to injured reserve. He's done. He had successful, I believe he had neck surgery, so he's gone for the year. Anthony Barr had a torn pec. He's gone for the year. George Aloka, he's on IR. Cam Dantzler, COVID-19 list. I don't know when we'll get him back. And then, of course, Michael Pierce was a voluntary opt-out before the season started, which was, kind of a big deal because they restructured Cousins' contract in order to be able to afford him to bring him in this year. And then injury status for this week of practice: Mike Hughes with the neck injury, Holton Hill, Troy Dye is off injured reserve. Him and Pat Elflein are coming back, but Troy Dye has the foot problem still. Chris Jones, I'm unaware of his status. And then Chris Boyd has the hamstring and back problems. So, grand scheme of things, I think, number one, this is concerning for Mike Hughes because I think we may have seen the last of him in a Vikings uniform on the field if they do shut him down. He is due to be have his 5th-year option picked up on the rookie contract. He is a first-round pick. But given the fact that he's just been unable to stay healthy during his entire tenure in Minnesota, I don't think that they're going to bring him back on that last year. Maybe they do just out of necessity for depth. But at the same time, I think, freeing up that roster spot and being able to move on might be something that they consider. Dantzler has been, one of those bright spots on the defense, given the fact that he was drafted in the middle of the draft and, wasn't really, players like that aren't really supposed to jettison themselves into starting positions, but he did. He had a really good training camp, so he ended up starting over Jeff Gladney early in the season. But the fact that Dantzler has missed time with injuries, now he's on the COVID list, so that was one of the knocks against him coming out in the draft, was just durability. So, the COVID thing is a different situation as just opposed to a random injury. But at the same time, his services are once again unavailable. And then, of course, losing Danielle Hunter, losing Anthony Barr, those are just the catalysts that just bring about dramatic change in the defense when you don't have your best linebacker, arguably your best linebacker, and your best pass rusher, who is one of the best pass rushers in the league. So problems all around. The attrition has been terrible, and it has resulted in some pretty porous performances, and also results in us showing up on the wrong end of the stat sheet. Yards per game, 413 allowed. That's 28th in the league. Points per game, 32nd in the league, or 32 points per game. That's 30th in the league. Rushing yards per game, 127, 22nd in the league. Passing yards per game, 286.7, 29th in the league. So, congratulations, Mike Zimmer. This is a bad defense. I understand not a lot of it is your fault, but there are some questionable decisions that were made in this offseason, considering the amount of players that we lost. Jaron Kearse, Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes. Xavier Rhodes is playing really well in Indianapolis. We lost Linval Joseph. You could say that a lot of that was just cutting salary, and making roster space. But at the same time, that's a lot of players, right? Not all of those players were just, given the axe because of poor performance or the desire to save money and move on, or we couldn't afford these guys. Listen, the salary cap is a myth, right? If they wanted to afford those guys, they could absolutely figure out a way to do it. They made this, and they were able to do it, so it's possible. So going forward, I honestly predict that this is going to be one of the worst Vikings defenses we've ever seen for the second half stretch, because they're just not healthy and they're inexperienced. So we're not going to have a sustainable pass rush. The interior defensive line is Swiss cheese. The linebacker position is fine and serviceable. I think it'll do well. The safety position is good, but I don't know that those two are good enough to overcome the real problems that we're going to have with the cornerback position, especially if these guys don't get healthy. Losing Mike Hughes for the season is a huge blow, despite his, less than stellar play, if you will. Just not having the experienced body in the system to perform is really puts you in a tough spot. So the fact that we don't have Dantzler, I'm a fan of Cam Dantzler. I hope he does well. I hope he succeeds in this league. I really want him to. But there's been times where he looks lost on the field, and he has some durability questions already. Jeff Gladney, I think, has underperformed for a first-round pick. I was really high on him coming out of TCU. He was definitely the guy that I wanted in the first round. It's very rare that both of the first-round picks that I want actually happen, in this year that they did. So I hit gold on one of those two, if you will. So going forward, I don't know. It's going to be a struggle. This defense doesn't look good on paper. It definitely will not look any better if these injuries don't stop. So the attrition needs to sort of, turn around for once, so this defense can get healthy, because I think going forward it's probably going to be very bad, and even worse than the stats that we're seeing now. So that is an in-depth look at the state of the Vikings defense. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.